Our first speaker is Daniel Azerrad. Daniel is a senior lecturer at the School of Architecture at Ariel's University. Born in Argentina, he completed his studies in architecture at the Technion, as well as his master's degree from UPF and Metropolis Barcelona. He founded the Daniel Azerrad's Architects Office in Tel Aviv as a platform for research and architectural creation, mainly in the residential field. Since 2014, he has been leading a thematic studio in the School of Architecture at Ariel University, focusing on the function of a sketch as a way to create and develop architecture. In his journey today, Daniel is combining architectural history and art to cast an innovative and an inspiring interpretation on Barcelona's classical grid plan. Let's welcome architect Daniel Azerrad. Good afternoon, Daniel.
Good afternoon. Thank you so much for inviting me, and I hope you can get through my personal journey. I will start with two personal obsessions that I have. One, my sketchbook. Through my sketchbook, I can understand, I can see or interpret the world. And the other one are grid cities. I was born in a grid city in Argentina and lived for almost 21 years in grid cities. And so I have a personal relation with these kind of cities. And from there, I get to Barcelona, I study in Barcelona, and I really get inside this city. Okay. Why grid cities? It's very interesting because grid cities are, in one side, a very ancient idea. It's as ancient as the human imagination. And from the other side, it's very flexible urban system, and let us discover again and again. So it's vital, even that is very very an old idea. And I would like to start with the image of Barcelona, and I choose Barcelona. When you fly from Barcelona, you know, the time we used to fly, you see like a chessboard, the extension of Barcelona. It looks like everything is the same. Each block is the same. The same below and the left on the side. But as soon as you touch with your foot, the spring foot, the street, you discover a different Barcelona, a very rich Barcelona in space, in streets, in architecture. So it's very interesting that this is the image of Barcelona. Even they have monuments like Sagrada Familia. And I think it's important to understand the beginning of this city and the relation between the Catalanian people and Europe. Everything, they said that they begin with the Phoenicians, and then the Greeks were the first one to put the European culture, but were the big Roman Empire that he really recreate Barcelona. And I think that the Romans gave more than Carlos and Decumanos that you could see today in the old city of Barcelona. They gave the strong roots of European culture, of classic culture, which is one of the main issues in Catalan, in the people of Catalonia, the strong belief that they look the Alps are to Europe and back to Africa, far away from the Islamic culture, which were part of Andalusia and even Madrid. So they say we are Europe, and the Roman gave the statement. And it's very interesting that he is an engineer who project this city, but Cerdá, they never say that they project the city. They say, I invented the city. For him was like an invention, but he didn't start with some ideas. He researched and he learned from 20 years about any kind of Greek city. So from the very first day that he created these very rational blocks, he created the diagonal and parallel and meridiana, which create a kind of unregular steps or system between this regular system. And one of the most important is the meridiana, which is completely related to what I said before. The meridiana begins in Barcelona and it ends in the center of Paris. They always were looking at Paris at the older sister. They want to be like. And you cannot talk about this big Eixample in Catalan, it's enlargement of the city, this big new Barcelona, without talking about the bourgeoisie. The bourgeoisie, which was one of the main society class, and I'm talking about the industrial bourgeoisie, the economic bourgeoisie, not the art, not the intellectual that were part of the Middle Ages, when around the Renaissance. They really were one of the main supporters of this city, and because they were very minded to make money, and they discovered in this huge new city of Cerdá a potential of building, of invest money, which was much more safer than going to the America, which were also in those days was still part of the Spanish Empire, and much more local. One of the main things that happened in the old city of Barcelona, and that's why they should go out from the food. They were it was a very dense, small and old city, because from one side they grew. And they were at the middle of the 19th century. There were something like 120,000 inhabitants in this city, but with a density which was 5 times Paris density. And the industrial revolution came to the city, and the pollution, and from the other side, the Spanish government didn't allow the Catalans to build outside the wall. So it was a nightmare. And in 1854, they destroyed the walls. And it was very clear that a new city will begin. Some Spanish writer wrote that in those days, in the city of the old town of Barcelona, every child will know exactly how he came to the world, because there were no privacy at all. And this rational city comes to this number, which is 113 by 113, which is the number of the size of the ideal block of Cerdá. And he cut the corners to enlarge the facades of the block. And he, even when he thought that the block should be open one, which two sides were built and one open with green space, so you can connect green space to green space, but the city grow and then they close it. And the other point, which is rational, very interesting, that Cerdá decided the very first day he invented the city, that the street will be streets that no horses will go again. The people would go from one place to the other by train. And on those times, the train began a new discovery in Europe. And some years ago, they opened the first line between France and Catalonia. And that's why he make 20 meters high, wide streets, 30 and 50, which are boulevards. And what the city gained today, that they reinvent the street again and again. And we cannot talk about this block without talking in residential typology, which is very interesting, because also we see that even that this is a monotonous block, there are so many typologies, residential typologies in Barcelona that it makes it very rich as a new city. And what it begins with a lot of 240 square meters, which was the size that Cerdá thought it should be. Then it came the free interpretation or the free economy of the bourgeoisie, the investment, because they said, okay, I buy this lot, and then I half of it or 40% of it, I will buy another small house and I will sell them, so I will get money for my house. And the one who bought the 40%, they also make this division. So this very free interpretation, local economy interpretation, make many typologies from one completely block to small one, and from different good pieces, like in the beginning of the 20th century, with all the Gaudí and many architects that gave to the Barcelona the personality they have until today. And once I talk about the street, I think that in a personal interpretation, I really named this block Urban Matryoshka. It's like a city inside a city, inside a city, inside a city. So for me, this block is not only what we see and what we perceive, but also a plethora of small and compact cities that can be rediscovered again and again and again. A virtual reserve of space that will be realized in the following centuries. And that is what for me is fascinating, and I try to put in these drawings. And back to Cerdá, there's an ideology. Cerdá wrote in one of the first books of theory of urbanism in the modern times. He wrote for 20 years 2 books, which were the base of Cerdá plan. And he made many things when he began to look at this new Barcelona, because he was an engineer. He drew a plan of the topography. And then he started to learn about these great cities, since the Palmova in Italy, the ideal city in the Renaissance, until he studied about new Spanish cities in America, like Buenos Aires, Montevideo. He was really fascinated to make this new block. So when we see this, my drawing about this block, we also see the same chessboard that we saw in the beginning. So the DNA of Barcelona is very simple. Each block is a layer, is a skin, which creates a, let's say, maybe a kind of monotonic space. But at the same time, inside there is a very informal, rich, and personal space. So these two worlds live together, and even that the block is not always the same. We can see for many different blocks. The idea that the DNA it's always the same. It's very interesting because Cerdá believe in a kind of analogy between two systems. One, a microcosm units system, which is, I will call it house and room. This is a very personal, intimate. And from the other side, we have a big union, a big system, which is block and street. But he believes that both systems, they are always there's always moving forward, or they always need the same thing, which is something between movement and quietness. These two interpretations were the same. So he always said that there is an analogy between the small, the intimate space and the big space. Time. It's very interesting because time, for me, is the most rigorous judge in the history of urbanism. We can understand urban ideas not 1 year or 2 years after they were written or they were built, but we can understand after many years. So time, it's the really judge, and when I look to this block of this city, this new Barcelona, like Cerdá called it, and the time makes something very interesting. And I think it's very interesting because Cerdá was very minded to create, to invent this new Greek city. He believed that by means or drawings I writing, he can include all the options, changes, things that will be part of the city in the next 200 years. And he also believed that he, as he said, he invent. He also said that inventing the Barcelona should be also inventing the words to describe this new Greek. Everything should be new. But by doing or inventing this perfect Greek, he wanted to make a statement. No politics, no economic will change the city. He believes that if this system, this Greece, is from one side strong enough to describe, as to create, all the outside world, the streets, the corners, and the square, and the inside will be so much flexible that architects and again could reinvent, rediscover, reinterpret the architecture in the blocks. The city itself, or the design itself, or the grid itself will be the one who will lead the city, and not the politics, not other interests. And when I see what happens after Cerdá, the grid started in 1859, so we almost 160 years after. The city, the blocks begin very low density. Then they were very, they close the block and they build a lot and they go higher. So, and until the 60s, the 70s, when the democracy came back to Spain, the Catalans began a new time, a very creative one, very well being part of this urban culture. And they start a new movement that they call Catalonia Renaissance, let's say the Catalonia Renaissance. And this Catalonia rediscover again the grid of Barcelona, and they start to open inside space. And what I try to make in this or seeing with this drawing, it's what I see. It's happened. It's happened today. So if I will make a conclusion, I will say that I try to tie two fields that I feel very close to them. One, my sketchbook and the drawings and the way I create and see the world, and another, Barcelona, the great city, and the history of the city. And I try through this work to make maybe an innovate and a different interpretation of the great city of Cerdá. Thank you very much.
You have a question? Thank you. Question?
Okay, so thank you, Daniel. In a nutshell, how do you reflect Barcelona in your sketches and paintings, please?
Well, it's very interesting. I think there is something that first of all, I believe that through the sketches, when I do sketches, I have a completely freedom of doing and interpreting the world I see around. Something that happens in my sketchbooks. It doesn't matter what's outside. It matters what's in my mind through my hand and finish in my watercolor or other kind of sketches. And when it comes to Barcelona, there is something fascinating between this very rational idea and the other side, these very compact blocks and these very rich worlds that are inside the block. So I think that trying to imagine standing outside and trying to imagine these different worlds that this city gave us, I let my imagination, I let my feelings, and let my hand to feel free and just draw. It's like a writer say that they write, somebody is here and is saying what to write. When I draw, and I feel the same. Like there are layers of images that I try to catch, and then I put them together, and that's the way they create, or I do this kind of. That's the way the Barcelona or the Cerdá Barcelona inspire these kind of sketches.
Well, thank you very much. You've given us a taste of Barcelona. So as soon as we can make the journey, we certainly will. So thank you very much indeed.